Apparently everything is sticking out in a footnote someplace. Point theta theta. The district court improperly dismissed Glendora's complaint. And that is why she is appealing to the United States Court of Appeals, the Second Circuit. This is judicial histrionics. It is not due process. This is a legal failure. As Glendora wrote in her complaint, pages 101 of appellant's brief, it is a sacrilege that this monopoly that Gannett should also have the grand First Amendment freedom of the press, which they abuse bodily. Point iota. It is clear that the wrongdoing on the part of the defendants, which directly affected plaintiff in an adverse manner, injure is the word, that's all he's got to say, is injure, were fully described in the complaint. What Judge Broderick wrote below is obviously prejudiced, predetermined, premeditated, and wrong. Judge Broderick never decided Glendora's case on its merits. He has private and personal reasons for sticking up for Gannett and for Cablevision when he knows in his soul that Gannett is antitrust and monopolistic in the county where he works. Judge Broderick has to face his maker with this one. Point kappa kappa. Judge Broderick did not follow the law in this case, just as he did not follow the law in the Cablevision case. As a matter of law, the Sherman Act, Section 4, Glendora should win this appeal. Point lambda lambda. And as a matter of fact, the facts as she gave them on pages 97 to 102 of her appellant's brief, Glendora should win this appeal. Point moo moo. Glendora stated in complaint significant threat. Lawyer Kalaji lies. First off, the injuries by Gannett on Glendora went far beyond threat. The injuries were and are actual. Pages 92 to 102 of appellant's brief. Secondly, on page 26 of her complaint, Glendora stated clearly there was a threat, unless restrained, that Greedy, Curley, Watson, McCorkindale, Sherlock, Paulson, Gannett Suburban, and Gannett Company would continue their antitrust and monopolization. Page 102 of appellant's brief. What defendants appellee's lawyer write on their page 7 is not so. Mere possibility, quote unquote, and insignificant threat, quote unquote, with all their citations of Zenith, Datagate, US, Ashley, are irrelevant because things went way beyond these. The injuries were actual. Glendora simply documented the injuries. Plaintiff was able and did cite future damages would happen on the basis of the past damages defendants appellees are liable for, and now states the present damages that are going on at this minute. Point new. Plaintiff appellant is entitled to injunctive relief, and so is every resident of Westchester, Putnam, and Rockland counties. Glendora should have made her lawsuit a class action. Defendants appellee's lawyers point 1b fails. The supporting facts were set forth by plaintiff appellant in great detail and with documentation. Curley et al. Offer no documentation whatsoever. Plaintiff appellant did demonstrate that she is suffering current injury and is threatened to suffer the same pursuant to Section 16 of the Clayton Act, and she asked that the court guard her against these injuries past, present, and future pursuant to Section 16 of the Clayton Act and to the sections of the Sherman Act. She cited. Point xi. Defendants appellee's lawyers point 2 does not help them. They violated the Sherman and the Clayton Acts by avoiding competition by combining the controlling corporations engaged in the same business and placing the power and property of the combination under the government of a few individuals, and those few individuals are Curley, Watson, McCorkindale, Sherlock, and Paulson. All of Kalaji's citations miss the mark because defendants appellees violated the Sherman and Clayton Acts. They restrained trade. It is as simple to see as that. Point Omicron. Thus, as a matter of law, Glendora wins because defendants appellees broke the law by joining forces to create one rather than many organizations, one organization in marketing, news, and advertising. Gannett eliminated competition past, present, and future, monopolized and made possible monopoly prices, excessive profits, and huge financial gains under the control of one man, Curley, and his buddies, Watson, McCorkindale, Sherlock, and Paulson. Merely look at pages 179 to 182 of appellant's brief and see the rip-off salaries, bonuses, stock incentive plans, CEO compensation, benefits, pensions, health plans of defendants, appellees, and of their buddy directors. This is a whole lot more than judges make. If this is not a conspiracy, then nothing is. Excuse me, Kalaji lies to say that Glendora's conspiracy claim is not supported. See the above and see the appellant's brief, pages 179 to 182. Defendant's appellees, point 2, therefore fails. Point pi pi. Thus, as a matter of fact, plaintiff appellant should win the appeal. She cites the facts, and defendants cite no facts. Point row row. Defendants appellees have no meritorious defense, not in their answer, not in their plural letters, not in their motion to dismiss, and not in their appellee's memorandum. In fact, as Glendora has maintained all along, they have no defense, and she believes they never will have. Anybody who lives in Westchester, Rockland, or Putnam counties, including Judge Broderick and Judge Fox, knows this. Point sigma sigma. Defendant's appellee's lawyer do not refute Glendora's 74 points in her appellant's brief, so plaintiff appellant wins by default. Point ta ta. Glendora pleads that the judges of the U.S. Court of Appeals stand up to Gannett monopolists. 1, all the judges Glendora has encountered so far are scared stiff of Gannett. 2, but Glendora read their bad record on TV. Point upsilon upsilon. The decision Judge Broderick wrote on Gannett is as baseless, prejudice, and wrong as the decision he wrote a few weeks later on Cablevision, where the state court showed he was wrong. Point 55. Plaintiff appellant already has shown how legally valueless is defendant's appellee's lawyer's motion to dismiss. Please see appellant's brief with appendix, pages 200 and 201. Point chi chi. Glendora has already shown how legally valueless is defendant's appellee's lawyer's affidavit of Robert M. Kalaji in support of motion to dismiss. Please see appellant's brief with appendix, pages 201 to 214. Defendants could have saved time, money, and labor in writing this motion. Judge Broderick's mind was already settled to rule in their favor, no matter what. Point psi psi. Glendora has already shown the bench what is wrong with Magistrate Fox's report and recommendation. See pages 49 to 62 of appellant's brief with appendix. Point omega omega. Defendant's appellee's lawyer failed to oppose a plaintiff appellant 74 points in a brief, ergo Glendora wins by default. Point alpha alpha alpha. That Judge Broderick is so atrociously wrong in this Gannett antitrust decision is borne out by how wrong he was in the next Glendora case that unfortunately was assigned to him. This was Glendora versus Dolan and Cablevision. And there's the conclusion. It's what I read you before, how we want an injunction to stop these people from doing all these monopolistic things. The damages is $600,000. And that the defendants pay the full cost of this action and whatever further relief court deems fit. And this was dated on August the 5th, 1994. Charlie came to the microphone and said, presenting the first musical score of the season, Brahms 6, Beethoven 2 at the top of the 5th. And did you hear about the 4 carpenters who formed a tuba group and called themselves the Tuba Fours? And at the end of the concert, the reporter asked the pianist, why did you choose to play Beethoven's 4th piano concerto? And the pianist thought a while and he says, I guess that's because that's what the orchestra was playing. The news on Glendora versus the DHCR people and the William Street DHCR and Judge Coppola is nothing. The reply brief was received by the appellate division in Brooklyn. The chief clerk, Martin Brownstein, called me, returned my call. They have a new telephone system there. They have voicemail. Good. Returned my call and told me that it was received, both the Coppola 1 reply brief and the Coppola 2 reply brief that have been read before you on television. So nothing is going to happen there for a year and a half. And it is my suspicion that the appellate division, even though I paid $500 for their appellate division intervention, is going to double this up and give me only $250 worth, and we'll have an oral argument on both of them on the same day. Scott Lord, nothing is happening because, as you know, the Shrewsbury brief was submitted, and by the way, the appellate division received that also. So all of my briefs before the appellate division are done. All of the appellant's brief, respondent's brief, and the reply brief. Unless, of course, Bert Stuchin decides to write a respondent's brief for Scott Lord, Jan Stahl, and Jeffrey Burns. Now, decisions, you know, the 3-for-1. One decision for the price of 3. I made $750, paid $750 for their intervention on that. Plus their appeal on all that. Let's see, that'd be $900. It cost me $900 to go to the appellate division for 3 lousy decisions where they never even dealt with the merits. They never even dealt with the issues. They didn't deal with what the case was all about. So I had to go out and have all these copied. You know what this cost? $60. And these have to go to the New York State Court of Appeals, along with a notice of entry and along with a request for them to give me leave to appeal. I don't get any appeal. I'm just asking for it. So it cost me $60 just to ask for it. And so we have here a copy of Glendora's reply brief on the Donovan bad decision, and a copy of the respondent's brief on the Donovan bad decision, and then we have a copy of the appellant's brief on the same decision, and a copy of the record on appeal. And that's for Donovan. And I put those in there all upside down. Now the next one is the bad decision of Judge Ruskin. And here is the appellant's reply brief, the respondent's reply brief. That would be John Ornberger, son-in-law lawyer. And here is the appellant's brief. And here is the record on appeal. That's all the work that Judge Ruskin caused me. Judges without judgment. In appellate divisions that don't deal with the issue. This one is the bad decision of Judge Nicolai and of his law clerk, Thomasina Berg. Respondent's brief. I don't know if you see much by not opening up here. Appellant's brief. That would be my brief, and the record on appeal. And that's what happens with Lydia Gallicano. This is in process and is going to get out of here very soon, even though it isn't due until August the 18th. On Friday, July the 29th, 1994, Bo is here, Beauregard the dog, and I'm taking care of him for Jim Poole and Miriam Poole and Matthew. And he's an awfully nice dog. He's a good dog. He requires a lot of walking, he requires a lot of feeding, he requires a lot of attention, but he's a good dog, Bo. Bo, you are a good dog. I'll show him to you later. I went, John Iodice could not go to the Giants and meet the Giants out at Fairleigh Dickinson University, and so I went alone, and it took 5 hours, and I could have taken you with me, and you could have met all kinds of New York Giants. And I went out there and I interviewed Ronnie Barnes, who is the head trainer. And that's the interview that you saw on the television. And boy, it was a lot of fun. I met John Elliott, and he's a lot of fun. Boy, is he big. He's awfully good looking though. He has blue eyes and red hair. He's a good looking man. And then I saw a lot of other giants, and they gave me an information manual for 1994. And boy, is it elaborate. It has pictures of all the players and histories of them and all of the rookies. And it was really a great thrill to go out there and see them all. And it was a good interview, as you saw, and it was about sports medicine. And I did not see Preston Tisch, Robert Tisch. And Fairleigh Dickinson University is a pretty campus, very pretty campus. And I met Pat Hanlon, who's the head of the public relations out there, and some other men. And they all seem to be pretty much college graduates. And Jason Knight was a sophomore at University of California at Los Angeles, and he's taking sports medicine, public health, or whatever you want to call it. And then Stephen, who was the assistant, he went to Northeastern University, that's down around Boston. So it was a day of peace here as far as Wall goes. Walsh, Alpucci, and of course the Larkins have gone. That's 1 down and 2 to go. It was quite a drive out there, 140 miles, but the Lincoln performed brilliantly. And I had good things to eat in my picnic box. As you can see, I weigh 163. Then on Saturday, I fed the cats and the squirrels and the raccoons and made Franklin a lunch and did the compost and did the rubbish and did the recycle. And then I fed Bo, and I take Bo for several walks. I go south on Greenridge between Rutledge and Lexington. And I put Bo in the woods, and we washed the Lincoln Continental, and we're majorly writing the reply brief. It's a lie a day, folks. You have to refute a lie every day. You have to get out a legal paper every day of these liars who lie all the time. And I answered 3 pages of that, and so moved that along 3 pages a day until it got done. And then I made up my 5:30 to 6:30 a.m. work, and that took 8 hours. It was behind 11 days because of all of these lawbreakers with their lying and with their covering up. There was quite a fight with Continental Cable Television up in Ossining. I had to call Boston and Hostetta and the other 2 people in command up there. Continental Cable Television changed my program from 3 p.m. Saturday to 3 p.m. Friday. There's a big difference there because a lot of people who have Continental Cable Television work in the county courthouse tower. A lot of judges watch the program, a lot of lawyers watch the program, and a lot of clerks watch the program. And so they're there at home on 3 p.m. Saturday, but not on 3 p.m. Friday. That's one thing. Another thing is that they did it without even telling me. And I just found out from the outside. So that was a knockdown and drag fight with Continental Cablevision. But they will. I didn't want to sue them, but I told them I would, just the way I did with Cablevision, that you can't prohibit or limit a program in public access. And so Diane Rainey called and said that she would put the program back to 3 p.m. Sunday. That's on Channel 19 South, Continental Cable TV, 3 p.m. on every Saturday. 3 p.m. every Saturday. That was Monday, and then Tuesday the order to show cause was printed, and it was served on Nella Alpucci, for her, and for Theo Alpucci, her son. And it was served on Roberta Walsh, for her, Roberta Walsh, and for James Walsh. Both Nella and Roberta, true to their pattern that you have seen many times on videotape, were vile, were law-breaking, were abusive, were insulting, and were obscene, and were violent, showing no control at all and no respect for the law at all. but they were served on Tuesday night. Roberta kicked the, well, here's the times. Let's see, they were served at 7:30 p.m. At 9, oh, by the way, Chat with Glendora appeared on TCI at 8:30 p.m. Tuesday night instead of 9 p.m. Tuesday night. And that was at the same time that these people were being served. The order to show cause, why there should not be a temporary restraining order against these people, why they shouldn't be cited for contempt of court, why they shouldn't be jailed, and why they shouldn't be fined. And they have to answer that order to show cause. And I wish that Judge Wood would not insist upon personal service. And maybe when he sees this affidavit of service and how law-breaking these people were when they were served, maybe he will stop asking for personal service. So at 9:01 p.m. Tuesday night, Roberta slapped Glendora's front door. That's a great habit of hers. She does the same stupid things over and over again. She just gets in a rut. And as I say, it has a lot to do with the abuse of substance, because people in their right minds do not act that way. And you remember the night that I told you about, without provocation, she just came out of her door on the second floor and started hurling obscene words when nothing had been said to her before. Nothing during, nothing after. So at 9:01 p.m. she goes and she slaps the front door. At 9:11 p.m. she slaps the front door 3 times and hits the door knocker twice. By the way, the number of tortious acts here at 21 Greenridge Avenue is up to 809. 809. At 9:05 p.m. Daniel Walsh picked up the papers that they violently threw all over the place. They threw them into the open window, and then they were back on the asphalt driveway, and Daniel Walsh picked them up, and one of these people, poured soda pop all over the trunk of the Lincoln, right onto the finish, onto the maroon finish of the Lincoln. This was an ignorant and South Bronx type thing to do, as their 800 actions in the past have been. These papers had a judge's signature on them. Judge Wood had signed them, and this is contempt of court. Slapped Glendora's front door, that's number 804, a law breaking. At 9:11 p.m., Roberta slapped Glendora 3 times and hit the door knocker twice, that's 805 to 809. At 9:05 p.m., Daniel Walsh picked up the papers that the 4 were served, the papers Roberta and Nella had strewn, and insert Nella, Roberta threw the legal papers all over the place. These papers had a judge's signature on them, and this is contempt. And at 9:30 p.m., the cellar bin locked up for the night, and Ginny was in, and Bo was in, Bo the dog, that were helping out while his people are in Washington State. Katie was in. Katie is afraid to come in while Nella and Roberta are there, and that's a bad sign that they have been mean to her. At 10 p.m., Roberta and Daniel Walsh came down the stairs quietly, went out the front west door, went past Glendora's south windows, then past the east windows, and Daniel was carrying the papers in his hand. On August the 3rd, 1994, Wednesday, the order to show cause was served on Bendish, the lawyer for the Walshes and the Alpucci's, although he doesn't know that he's a lawyer for Alpucci's, and to Convoy, who is the lawyer for General Accident and the lawyer for the Larkins. And then they're all ready to serve. At 5:15 a.m., Glendora went to the cellar bin. The light bulb was on the floor and all smashed to pieces, and the pull chain had been yanked out of it. Franklin went down and put in a new bulb, and it did work. This time the fixture, the porcelain ceiling fixture, had not been vandalized the way it has been vandalized 2 times before. And that's number 812, and the prime suspect is Roberta Walsh, because she just loves vandalizing Glendora's bin, just the way she loves vandalizing Glendora's front door, just like you heard the slaps on the door and the kicks on the door. The string attached to the light fixture was pulled out. It is nowhere in sight. At 6:02 a.m., the light bulb Franklin put into the socket to test came apart. The metal base at 6:05 a.m. we found out that we got the light bulb in the socket and it works. At 8:09 a.m. we were done with the wall log. At 8:09 a.m. I made a copy of the wall log for last week, 8.5 by 11 for Judge Wood as Exhibit Iota. At 8:29 a.m., 3 hours and a quarter so far on Walsh and Alpucci. And at 8:29 p.m. I did the wall, I did the wall envelopes. And insert, the chair that was stolen from the cellar last year has been returned. And insert, on August the 1st, 1994, Monday, Roberta's cigarette butt was on the laundry area floor, number 814. The cigarette butt burns are on the oilcloth and all of the washers on the white porcelain. And I have picked up 4 bags of litter out of the field and along the sidewalk from the tree belt, well, from the curb to the fence of this great big lot down here that is abused so badly by people breaking the law and littering. At 9:20 a.m. I folded, stuffed, and sealed the 23 wall logs, and they're ready to post. Let's see, the printing of that was $10, and the postage would be 52 cents times 23. What's that? 3 2s 6, 3 5s 15, 2 2s 4 and 5, 2 5s and 10. Yeah. So that was about $10. Since Nella, Theo, Roberta, and James were process served at 8:40 p.m. on August the 2nd, 1994, Tuesday, they have committed 4 law breakings, 2 harassments, and 2 vandalisms. At 9:40 a.m. I read the law, disturbing utterances such as profane, insulting, humiliating, abusive language, and loud clapping, and woof woof. Liability for such acts and the damages are recoverable. And what started all this? The breaking of the law by the Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin families, the White Plains Noise Ordinance, April the 11th, 1993, Easter. Yelling, shouting, hooting, whistling, or singing at any time or place so as to annoy or disturb the quiet, comfort, repose, health, or peace of persons in any dwelling or other residence. That is the law that was broken initially. When Glendora stood up for her rights and began videotaping her evidence, instead of reforming, said hoodlums started a long campaign of retaliation, more law-breaking, harassment, vandalism, thievery, abusive and insulting language, horn-blowing, fright, mental disturbance, and littering, which is going on to this very day. And that's over, let's see, the first year was from April 93 to April 94, and now it's from April to July of 94. Bob brags, I run things in my house, and Ed says he does indeed. The lawnmower, the vacuum, and the washer. The time on wall so far, this log is 7 hours. At 10:40 a.m., Glendora was walking Bo. James Walsh went by on a bicycle, and he was wearing no helmet. And that's another law breaking, 818. He hollered something at Glendora. Look at the sun, but the moon is covering up the sun. The moon is coming between the sun and the earth. Let's go back here and look at these here. This is on May the 10th, 1994. There's my shadow. It's a Tuesday and the time is 1:45 p.m. See the little moons covering up the sun? eclipse is supposed to last 3.5 hours. But you see, that's what's happening. See, the moon is moving by the sun. And of course the sun's moving, the earth's moving. Everybody's moving. It's like the first of the month. But you can look here and not hurt your eyes and see where the eclipse is. I want to show you something. How are you?
How are you doing?
So, I want to show you something. See, this tells you, see, look there, that tells you where the moon is. See? See, you can see the moon? You know what I mean? Yeah, you see this? You see how all these light patterns are curved?
Yeah.
Well, that's the moon covering up the sun.
Are you serious?
Yeah, no, this is this is the eclipse. Isn't that great? And you don't dare look at the sun.
Are you trying to film it?
Oh, I did film it, yeah.
How do you film it? How do you actually look at it when you film it?
Well, I look through here.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's wonderful.
But this is the thing, is that, now, you know...
Isn't the sun a little bright though? Aren't you not supposed to be doing that?
Oh, it doesn't hurt that, no.
No?
Well, you put it in the sun.
Sun? Oh.
But you see, this is great, because now you can see what the progress is of the eclipse without hurting your eyes. Because you see, this is the moon covering up the sun.
And as it moves, it shifts?
That's right. Now, as the moon, the earth, and the sun all move, then you're going to see more and more of the actual round thing, the sun.
Never ever thought of that.
I know. I never realized that until I got out here and saw it.
Look at this.
Yeah. But that's a weird light. It's interesting. Because you want to know how much longer is it going to last. And that tells you. Well, 3.5 hours.
How many times does an eclipse actually occur?
Well, they aren't regular. And you have to, get an astronomer and you have to calculate it and you have to know where it's going to be. We're lucky it's here.
Just say, how many times has it happened like in the last year?
Well, I don't
Like in 93? Do we have one?
No. I sometimes 2-3 years goes before you have one. I have a friend who goes all over the world and watches the eclipse of the sun.
Oh, God.
One time he saw it best in India, one time he saw it best in Russia, one time one time he saw it best in South America. Yeah, he used to go every time there was an eclipse. But you see, that tells you that's the moon covering up the sun. But don't look at it.
No, I'm looking at the trees.
Yeah. I should have got those glasses where you can watch it.
Watch them.
Yeah. But you have to be careful of your eyes. But that's what it is, see?
It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it really is. My name's Glendora.
Oh, that's also best. That's very interesting.
Yeah, I wanted to...
I would have never known that.
No, I didn't realize it either. And nobody's ever told me this.
Learn something new every day.
Yeah, you do.
Isn't it amazing?
Yeah. Well, nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
Bye now. See, if we come out in a little while, the white part will be getting bigger as the moon passes. Okay, I'm going to close up at 1:51 p.m. I'm going to go do Scott. Hi there, everybody. This is a chat with Glendora, and this is what happened on the week of August the 4th to August the 11th, Thursday to Thursday, and here it is. Would you believe this? Would you believe that? This appeared in the New York Law Journal on the front page on Wednesday, August the 10th, 1994. And they printed the whole decision. Your TV screen isn't big enough to see this. This is the whole decision. That whole thing. 3 columns top to bottom in the New York Law Journal, in addition to the article that I showed you. And this is their idea. You know, I don't see why it was so interesting to them. And what case is it? Of course, it's the Cablevision case, where Cablevision broke a law, they got caught lying, they got caught covering up. It's written by Matt Goldstein. The art director is Kathy Jones. Sent a messenger up and got this picture, and I hope they will send it back. The picture's nice. The picture's all in color. It's something like this color. It looked nice. Cable TV show wins. Cable TV show host wins right to air on Access Channel. Glendora, a Chat with Glendora program, was shelved by Cablevision, by Matthew Goldstein. A self-styled television talk show host has won a court battle with the Long Island Cable Company over the right to air her 30-minute programs on the company's public access channel. The decision is on page 26, column 2. Column 2, column 3, column 4. Westchester Supreme Court Justice Donald N. Silverman last month ordered Cablevision Incorporated to resume airing Glendora's public access cable show, A Chat with Glendora, on its cable system in Nassau County. Judge Silverman issued the order in Glendora versus Kofal. They left out all the names of the other defendants. I'll read them to you later. Well, they're on the screen. Index number 3288 of 94. After determining the state's public access cable statute, executive law, section 829.3, prohibits cable operators from censoring and refusing to air programs on its public access channels. In the July 28th decision, which has been stayed while the cable company appeals the ruling to the Appellate Division, 2nd Department, Justice Silverman said, quote, "It is clear that embedded in the various provisions of Executive Law Article 28 is an intent to enhance and encourage public interest cable television. The prohibition of censorship at issue here is part and parcel of that intent. This promotes a stated government interest in a way that places no limits or specifications on content of the programming. Cablevision, you lost. Robert M. Kalaji, you lost." Cablevision, which had broadcast several of Glendora's programs in Nassau County in 1993, refused to telecast any future programs after determining that the shows were merely a vehicle for Glendora to discuss the details of the many pro se lawsuits she has filed in state and federal court. I'm sorry that Matt Goldstein fell victim to a lie of Kalaji and Cablevision. You have to remember that if you can't talk about personal disputes on cable television, then you can't have court TV. And you can't have the O.J. Simpson hearings, coast to coast, carried by every network. Lawyers for the cable company argued the state public access law was preempted by federal cable statutes. The federal statutes, however, only permit cable operators to censor obscene or sexually explicit public access programs. Justice Silverman, noting that none of Glendora's programs contain obscene material, oh, thank you, Justice Silverman, said there was no inherent conflict between the state and federal statutes and rejected the preemption argument. It was a stupid argument anyway that Kalaji came up with. Why don't they just say, we broke the law, we're sorry, we'll pay you damages, and we won't do it again? That would have been the right way to handle this lawsuit. And it did by Cablevision has to lie, has to cover up, and has to pay Kalaji shareholders money to do that for them. In addition, Justice Silverman rejected the defendant's claim that the state statute violated the First Amendment because it infringed upon a cable operator's editorial control. Specifically, Justice Silverman said, The statute was a constitutional restriction on free speech since it was content neutral and intended to further an important government interest. Earlier this year, U.S. Southern District of New York Judge Vincent L. Broderick had dismissed a similar lawsuit brought by Glendora against Cablevision. And I think Judge Broderick's in trouble with that one, because that's gone straight down the United States Court of Appeal. That here is Judge Broderick sitting on a bench, and he okays Cablevision breaking a federal law. I think Judge Broderick's in trouble. However, the state court decision was not a total victory for Glendora because Justice Silverman dismissed many of her claims for damages and defamation against the cable company. Glendora, a Westchester County resident who represented herself, said she intended to appeal the damages portion of the ruling, but was generally pleased with its outcome. Cablevision was represented by Robert M. Kalaji of Satterley, Stevens, and Burke. Yes, that notice of appeal was filed on Wednesday, yesterday. It's all filed. I certainly did not appeal the statutory right to have my program on cable television in Long Island. I certainly did not appeal that the state law is not unconstitutional. I certainly did not appeal that the state law is not preempted by federal law. Those are the only 3 things I did not appeal, but I appealed 17 other things. And somewhere around, I'll find you that notice of appeal, and I'll read it to you. It is filed. Cablevision has not filed their notice of appeal. In this case, I think it would have to be a cross notice of appeal, a cross appeal. So whoopee! Now, in addition to that, folks, the New York Times, I called them and I told them that you've been scooped. It's serious business. They've been scooped by the New York Law Journal, and they got on their pogo stick right away. And I talked to the New York Times for 40 minutes yesterday, Wednesday. And he is to call me today, Thursday. I'm the appellant, and they're the appellee. And so their brief arrived. It's cute, isn't it? Cute little brief. And it's about 7 pages with this unattached letter, which you're going to hear me complain about shortly. But it's kind of cute. And it's printed by the United States Government Printing Office. And you'll hear what I have to say about that. I think it's against the law. I think it has to be 8.5 by 11. You know, this could get lost very easily. Even 8.5 by 11 can get lost easily. And so, this is my appellant's reply brief. Their color has to be red. My color has to be blue. I'm appellant. My color is blue. Appellee's color is red. That's a cute little system they have. And if you're an amicus curiae, then it has to be green. So let's get on with this. This is my table of contents. This is all of my arguments. Goes on for page 1, page 2, page 3. This is what I didn't like about her brief. Now her brief, and when I say her, I'm talking about Mary Jo White, who is the United States Attorney for the Southern District of New York. She is being paid by us to defend people who have committed negligences and are trying to lie and cover up about them. Those people are Duberstein, Judge Conrad Duberstein, Judge Robert John Hall, former United States Attorney Andrew Maloney, former United States Trustee Harold Jones, Neil Mann, former United States Assistant Trustee, Teresa Kavanaugh, current Assistant United States Trustee, Richard O'Connell, Joseph Derby Scott, Lord Jan Stahl, and Jeffrey Barnes. Although O'Connell, Barnes, and Stahl and Lord are over in the state court, and I've read you the briefs on that. Here we go. Appellant's reply brief argument, point alpha. This is Glendora plaintiff. Seeks only $50,000 damages from defendants Duberstein through Derby. The other $30,000 she seeks from the Appellate Division, 2nd Department, New York Supreme Court, from defendants O'Connell, Lord, Stahl, and Barnes. So Mary Jo White through Novinsky had the wrong figure there. It's only $50,000. Point beta. On page 3 of defendants' appellees' lawyers' micro book is infra. The district court dismissed the action against the federal defendants because the plaintiff had failed to file an administrative claim for damages as required by Title 28 United States Code, Section 2675A, and Glendora says, so when Glendora cured this defect, which I did, I filed the administrative claims, they were all denied. You know, it's the old boys club. Why didn't Judge Gattell go on with the case and rule on its merits, which was negligences? That's what I charged them with, negligences, and that's what they committed. There's no question about it. Point gamma. Defendants appellees, now it's got to be appellees because it's a double L. On January 24, 1994, plaintiff moved pursuant to Rule 60b-5 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure to vacate the August 9, 1993 memorandum decision of Judge Gattell and for reconsideration on the ground that she had, by the date of her motion, filed 4 administrative claims and that each had been denied. And Glendora says to that, no, Glendora moved to do this around February the 14th, Valentine's Day, but Judge Gattell's chambers lost the original papers. Point delta. Defendants appellees, lawyer Wright, in a memorandum decision dated March 4th, 1994, the district court denied plaintiff's motion in all respects. In its decision, the court noted that plaintiff's motion for reconsideration was not timely under Local Rules 3J, and Glendora says it was timely. She got the administrative claims and denials in just as soon as they came back to her. This untimely is a runaway. Look at how untimely Novinsky was answering the summons with complaint, that would be Mary Jo White, and Judge Gattell let her get away with that for 4 months. Point epsilon. Defendants appellees lawyer Wright that the appropriate procedure for plaintiff to follow after administrative claims were denied was to file a new action. Plaintiffs did not appeal this decision. They try to get out of it any way they can, and here they are, the United States Attorney. And here these judges did not do their duty by the United States of America, nor by their oaths of office as judges. And by the way, that's in my table of authorities, which I didn't read you. My table of authorities is Federal Tort Claims Act, Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, oath of office as a judge, oath of office as a public officer, the Holy Bible, Roman Law, Magna Carta, Golden Rule, and Beatitudes. We should have put in there Charlemagne also. I think it's disgraceful that these people cannot do their jobs as employees of the United States government better than that. Glendora says this is wrong. It would have been another $120 to file a new lawsuit, and Judge Gattell should have welcomed the opportunity to rule on the case on its merits. He dismisses the case because I hadn't filed the administrative claims first, so I filed the administrative claims. Then all the administrative claims are denied. I come back and I tell Judge Gattell that, and so he should have picked up and started ruling on the case on its merits instead of all of this manipulation and all of this hanky-panky. Point zeta. On March 21st, 1994, plaintiff moved, this is the United States Attorney writing, plaintiff moved to vacate the March 4th, 1994 memorandum decision. That's the second Rule 60B motion. The district court denied plaintiff's motion by memorandum endorsement. The endorsement was filed on April 15, 1994. Plaintiff now appeals from the order denying her second rule. I tell you, Judge Cattell, that's a bad record. Point Eta. The district court improperly denied plaintiff's motion to vacate and reconsider pursuant to Rule 60B-5. Point Theta. Glendora made it abundantly clear she was invoking Rule 60B-5 in her March 21st, 1994 motion to vacate the March 4th, 1994 motion on grounds that it is no longer equitable that the judgment should have prospective application. Pages 132 and 133 of appellant's brief. Look at the sloppy job Judge Cattell did in response to the March 21st, 1994 motion. I showed it to you on TV. It was a disgrace. So Novinsky, for Mary Jo White, as very often in the past, is not telling the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in her appellee's sawed-off brief. Sawed-off brief. This is the size it should be. Look at the size. It's just half the size. Point iota. Here's another lie by Novinsky. Nor did the papers contain any argument as to why plaintiff was entitled to the relief that she sought. Well, now, Exhibit Sigma, pages A, Appendix 133 to 156 of my appellant's brief. That's this great big thing here that you've already heard. Okay, pages 133 to 177, whatever it is, 133 to 156, Exhibit Sigma, are all arguments why plaintiff was entitled to the relief that plaintiff sought. Novinsky is desperate. Novinsky is a lawyer for the United States Attorney who's a liar. So you have double lies. You have two lawyers, you're going to have double lies. Point Kappa. Glendora pellucidly stated that she should have relief when it is no longer equitable that the judgment have prospective application. Her complaint was dismissed because she didn't file administrative claims. She filed claims and they were denied. So Judge Cattell's judgment no longer had prospective application. What Novinsky, Mary Jo White write on page 4 of her brief has no substance and is a willful distortion and a disgrace to the United States Attorney White, Judge Duberstein, Judge Hall, United States Trustee Jones, and the others Novinsky represents. Point lambda. Plaintiff's second Rule 60B-5 motion was incorrectly denied, just as her first Rule 60B-5 motion was incorrectly denied. Rule 60B is saying that the judgment should be vacated because it no longer has prospective application. It had no application because I went out and I got the administrative claims. He dismissed my case because I didn't have administrative claims. I get the administrative claims. So his judgment no longer has prospective application. On appeal, Glendora made it abundantly clear why the district court was in error to deny both these motions. Novinsky, Mary Jo White chooses to deceive with this page 5 statement of her micro-brief. Law makes that suits failing to point move. Novinsky is nitpicking and is failing at it. She writes, plaintiff's brief to this court demonstrates her misunderstanding. Appeal, wrong. It's her misunderstanding. Plaintiff's appeal is from the denial of her second Rule 60B motion, yet rather than addressing that denial, plaintiff complains about the denial of her first Rule 60B motion. See how picky they are? See how nitpicking they are? Because they don't have a defense, that's why. They have no defense. They never will have a defense. Plaintiff asks you 3 judges, that's the 3 judges of the United States Court of Appeals who are going to be reading this, and I hope deliberating on it, and I hope ruling justly. Plaintiff asks you 3 judges to read again her affidavit giving her reasons for appealing Judge Cattell's third bad decision. It's Exhibit Sigma, pages A131 to A156. This tells things as they are, not as Novinsky, Mary Jo White, has twisted them. Point new. These matters are properly before the court because of the citation Novinsky just made. Quote, brings up only the denial of the motion, unquote. The second motion to vacate cannot be deliberated upon without invoking the first motion to vacate. Further, Novinsky, Mary Jo White never brought up her point super to Judge Cattell. Yeah, the point that she's making now in her micro brief was never brought up to Judge Cattell in the lower court, United States District Court. Point psi. Defendant's appellee's lawyer never properly opposed the second motion to vacate, so Glendora wins by default. Novinsky Mary Jo wrote a letter. Not a grown-up legal paper. It doesn't count. In this letter she says, rather it appears from her papers that plaintiff's only basis for her latest motion is her disagreement with the court's decision. Well, naturally, Glendora's basis for her latest motion is her disagreement with Judge Cattell's decision. What other basis would there be? Point omicron. The Federal Tort Claims Act states that when a person does not file administrative claims, the case is dismissed without prejudice. That means you can do it over again. And the person files the administrative claims and goes back where that person left off. Point pi. And way back in August, Glendora notified Judge Cattell she would file the administrative claims, and if denied, she would be back. See appellant's brief, page A99, Exhibit Omicron. That's in here. Point rho. Quote, unquote, must be dismissed, yes, but without prejudice. Point tau. Point sigma. No way can justification be found to make Glendora pay another $120 on the same cause of action. Point tau. And the United States Court of Appeals knows that plaintiff is pro se, and Judge Cattell loathes, hates, abhors, despises, and detests pro ses, which is unconstitutional and in violation of his oath to support the Constitution. Point epsilon. Novinsky's Mary Jo statement, Mary Jo White statement on page 6, last paragraph, continuing on page 7 of her brief, is haughty, improper, and antithetical to due process, and she should be sanctioned. Point 5. Glendora has a basis for vacating Judge Cattell's decision of March 21st. She stated it clearly in her motion. She stated clearly in her appellant's brief why the lower court was wrong. Her complaint was improperly dismissed, and her Rule 60b-5 motion was improperly denied. Point chi. It is terrible that our United States Attorney in the Southern District, Mary Jo White, and our judges, Hall and Duberstein in the Eastern District, are so irresponsible, and that Novinsky, Mary Jo White cover up for them. There is no basis for anything that they write. Point psi. Nowhere does Novinsky, nor Judge Cattell, nor the defendants deal with the case. Negligences. These people committed them. They are liable. All of this has been reported on TV to you. Every time one of their covering up papers comes out, it is reported on TV, isn't it? It does not endear people to the courts, does it? 1, they never dealt with the merits, they never got to the core, they just skirted the penumbra. It is a bad performance all around. Judge Cattell did no better than Judge Hall or Judge Duberstein. It is an old boys club. Believe me, it is. It is a poor showing on the part of these defendants and attorneys. It is nothing America can be proud of. 3, these defendants need a different attorney than Novinsky. She just makes them look worse. 4, can anyone tell the world what this means? I don't know what this means. Down here. The attachments to plaintiff's submissions contained in our docket 20, that would be the record on appeal, are not included in the appendix. Point omega. Nowhere does Novinsky deal with her default. She never answered the summons with complaint timely. Never, never. As Glendora has proved amply in her motion and in her appellant's brief. It was not honest that Judge Cattell let Novinsky and defendants get away. Point alpha alpha. Nowhere does appellee's lawyer's brief deal with negligent infliction of emotional distress with no physical effect. This is a federal cause of action, and it is discussed for several pages in American jurisprudence. So on this point, plaintiff should win by default. Point beta beta. Nowhere do appellee's lawyer oppose the 23 points in Glendora's appellant's brief with index, so Glendora should win by default. Point gamma gamma. Lawyer Novinsky enclosed with her brief an unattached letter. She wrote to Judge Cattell on March the 28th, 1994. She should have made a motion to the court to file an appendix. You have to make a motion to the United States Court of Appeals to file an appendix, so that this unattached enclosure should be precluded. It should carry no weight. It is improper. And if she didn't do that, if she's going to file in brief form, which she did, this is brief form, she should have filed a motion for an appendix to file that as part of the appendix. But instead, she dumps this into an envelope with this, mails it out by the franchise, so she didn't have to pay for it. And there's no date on a franchise. Franchises are not postmarked, which is another underhanded thing to do, and she's done it before, and I've called her on it before. Anyway, what she should have done if the brief was only this big, like 7 pages, 7 little pages at that, what she should have done was to file in memorandum form. You can do that. File in memorandum form and just attach this as an exhibit. I think that she did the whole thing wrong, and I told him so. Point delta delta. Plaintiff appellant objects to the format of appellee's lawyer's brief. The rules say 8.5 by 11. This is 9.25 by 12.25, an odd size that doesn't fit, just as their argument is odd and doesn't fit. Who paid to have this printed? Did the taxpayers? The United States Attorney's Office should be able to do its own copying. 2, it is only 7 pages. It could have been answered in memorandum form, point epsilon epsilon. Trustee O'Connell on June 25th, 1994, Saturday, 10 a.m., told Glendora if he injured her, he was sorry, and he apologized. If he had done this 2 years ago and made good, there would never have been any lawsuit. That was all it takes. That's all it takes. Go to church and learn the Golden Rule, learn the Beatitudes, and learn the 10 Commandments. That's all it takes. And so instead, we have lawsuits. Point zeta zeta. So this was 2 big victories for Glendora. The check and the apology. The check was for $3,305. Point eta eta. But runaways, Duberstein, Hall, Maloney, Jones, Mann, Kavanaugh, Derby, White, and Novinsky go on lying and covering up and blaming somebody else. Point theta theta. That so many of the defendants are former quote-unquote shows that Glendora was right. They were right. Glendora was right that they were negligent. Bye-bye. Point iota iota. On June 30th, 1994, Glendora received her check for $3,305 from trustee Richard O'Connell for payment as a creditor. Point kappa kappa. Novinsky's Mary Jo's White citation of cases is as much against appellees as they are for appellees. Many of the cases cited are irrelevant and do not fit Glendora's cause at all, just as many cases can be found. Pro as con. And they rule by the seat of their pants anyhow. They have these pages and pages of citations, and they rule by their seat of the pants. Conclusion of plaintiff appellant Glendora. 1, because the district court improperly denied plaintiff's motion, its order should be reversed. 2, the issue presented for review is whether Glendora received justice from Judge Cattell. Glendora said she didn't receive justice. 3, Glendora asked this court for $50,000 damages for injuries incurred by the negligences of the defendants. 4, Glendora asked that defendants be taxed for the cost of this action, $120 filing fee plus $110 appeal fee plus $40 printing and plus $20 printing, $290. Glendora asked for any further relief that this court deems just and proper. Dated White Plains, New York, August 10th, 1994. Glendora, Glendora TV ads, box 416, White Plains, New York, 10602. Think of all of the information that the people of Nassau County and Long Island don't get because Cablevision had to censor. This is really a Long Island story, although it applies to you people in Westchester, Rockland, and Manhattan, because it is the story of a liar, a thief, and a cheat, Scott Lord, who thought he was going to get away with it, and who was called. And he thought he was going to get away with it when he filed a bankruptcy, but he didn't. And he ended up having to pay $14,200. And Jan Stahl and Jeffrey Barnes, who ended up having to pay $5,000 for committing fraudulent conveyances in the bankruptcy petition. This is a Long Island story that the people on Cablevision who are subscribers of Cablevision are not hearing because Cablevision censored it. Now, just a point of clarification here. I sued, first of all, I sued Scott Lord, and he didn't pay, and he ran away, and he went bankrupt. And then I've told the bankruptcy court that he had committed fraudulent conveyances, and indeed he had, and they made him pay the bankruptcy court, pay the state, the bankruptcy estate. And then it took so long, 4.5 years, that I sued the bankruptcy judge and his boss, Duberstein, and the United States trustees. I sued all those people for negligences because there's no reason that it should take that long. And also I asked for a criminal investigation of Scott Lord, and they entirely ignored it. Andrew Maloney said that he would keep me posted. Neil Mann said he would keep me posted. So it was a whole bunch of negligences, and they ought to pay for them. They must be brought to justice about them. But then when the case was brought in the Westchester Supreme Court, O'Connell got it over into the bankruptcy court, and I got it back into the Westchester Supreme Court. And then Novinsky, Mary Jo White, gets it before Judge Cattell in the district court. And Judge Cattell, at the end of his decision that you just read about, that I'm appealing, he severed the case and put O'Connell, Scott Lord, Jan Stahl, and Jeffrey Barnes over back into the Supreme Court, where I paid the $245 to put it in the first place. And he kept the other defendants that you see on the screen in the district court. His decision was bad, his decision was wrong, his decision was unjust, and it's being appealed. I wrote my appellant's brief. This is their little dinky appellee's respondent's brief. And this is my reply brief. And that's the end of it. Next thing is an oral argument. Will be called down the United States Court of Appeals down in Foley Square, and I will stand up and I will argue this orally. All of their lies, all of their negligences, all of their cover-ups. Now, what else happened on Scott Lord? Oh, this huge law, 60 pages. The reason I let it get so big has been folded, stuffed, and sealed. It cost $20 to copy it. It's taken hours and hours to reduce it and paste it up. That is on its way to go out today, Thursday. I hope this is the next to the last log. The only thing that I can see in the last log would be what happens at the oral argument, because that's got to be the final thing, unless the United States Court of Appeal makes unjust decisions and keeps up with the old boys clubs and doesn't rule against judges. And then it goes to the United States Supreme Court in Washington, D.C. But I get called by the New York Times. Apparently they're going to do a story on Glendora wins, Cablevision loses. And this is the New York Times, the Long Island office. And so I just talked to him for another 20 minutes. I talked to him yesterday for 40 minutes. His name is John Rather. Not Dan Rather, John Rather. Okay, I just want to show you before it goes off to the printers. This is the Gannett Broder mailing. That's maybe will go up today if it gets printed. But it's huge. And it had to be reduced at that. And I don't know how many pages it is, about 60. And at the end I tell him that the New York Times is also writing a story. Gannett is scooped again, flunking the basics. And I enclosed, of course, the New York Law Journal article. Okay. There's another telephone call. I have to go. I'll be back so I can tell you some jokes. That phone call was Officer Eric Fisher, and I gave him the reports of the abuse, the insulting and abusive language and the harassment of Nella Alpucci and Roberta Walsh on the night of August the 6th, Sunday, at 7:58 p.m. when Bo was outdoors and he saw a cat and he didn't realize that it was his cat, Ginny Cat, and he chased her. And I had to retrieve Ginny, and then I had to retrieve Bo. So I came back, the three of them were sitting like Humpty Dumpty on the wall, Daniel Walsh, Nella Alpucci, and Roberta Walsh. And as I went by and nothing was said to them, I didn't even look at them. And I'm not going to tell you what Nella Alpucci said. It was obscene, it was vile. And then Roberta said, see, she doesn't like kids, but she likes animals. Well, Roberta doesn't know what she's talking about, and Roberta might have been under the influence of some substance. Now, so I had made those 2 reports, and also last night when I came home, got out of my car and gathering things up to take into the house, Roberta and Walsh and Nella Alpucci were not sitting on the wall, but they were sitting in chairs at the same location. And as I got out of the car, they had to taunt, and it was Nella Alpucci's voice. It said, yoo-hoo, there's just no need of that, okay? They just have to mind their own business and stop breaking the law. And so now, another thing that happened on Glendora versus Gannett Broder and all of the names of those people that you see on the screen right now is I got in the Broder mailing, as I told you, but I also got out the 10 copies of the appellant's reply brief to the lies that Kalaji has told to go to the United States Court of Appeals in Foley Square. And the next thing on that is going to be the oral argument. And I keep reading the business corporation law, and I keep seeing places where Gannett is violating that law. And I know that the New York Times has just talked to Kalaji. Now that's about Cablevision, it's not about Gannett. The lawyers are the same and the lies are the same. Okay, I want to read you some jokes. Present state of his financial status is, well, that's not too good. Let's try again. That's tautological. The present state of his finances is liquid assets, and his mother-in-law says that's right. That means everything is going down the drain. And Bob says that an earthquake is caused by 2 massive forces pushing on a fault. He says it's like being caught between your mother-in-law and your wife. I think it has to be 8.5 by 11. You know, this could get lost very easily. Copied, that's all. This has to be reduced to this size, and it has to be copied, and then it has to be shipped out. But you've read them all. You've heard them all of these. And then what is happening on Glendora versus Lydia Gallicano? All of the briefs, the appellant's briefs, the respondent's briefs, and the reply briefs, it cost $60. They have all been shipped out to the New York State Court of Appeals in Albany, along with my reasons why the bad work of the appellate division should be reversed. They affirmed the bad decisions of Judge Nicolai, Judge Ruskin, and Judge Donovan. So that has all, that went out yesterday, Wednesday, along with the Gannett reply brief. He just jumped off to the desk onto the back of a swivel chair and went for quite a ride, and she's quite perplexed by it. But I've got to get up and help her. She wants to sit on the windowsill. David says he sings like a prisoner behind 8 bars and looking for the key. And did you hear about the 4 carpenters who formed a tuba group, and they call themselves the Tuba Fours? And Bob says about his group, he says each one of us is a fine musician, is a fine artist in his own right. It's only when we try to play together that we have trouble. And at the end of the concert, the reporter was asked, at the end of the concert, the reporter asked the piano soloist, why did he play Beethoven's 4th Piano Concerto? And the pianist said, I think it's because that's what the orchestra was playing. I'm going to read you the affidavit of service written by Franklin Buell, who did the process serving on Nella Alpucci. Well, I'll just read it to you. This is the Supreme Court of the State of New York, the County of Westchester, Glendora plaintiff versus Daniel Walsh, Roberta Walsh, James Walsh, Nella Alpucci, Theo Alpucci, Andrew Larkin, and Kevin Larkin, defendants. And this affidavit of service was received. And county clerks have got to do better. The stamp is dirty. It was received August the 4th, I guess, 1994. That this affidavit of service has to go down in the history books, just like the ones that Franklin wrote when he served the service dodgers, the fugitives of service at Cablevision. Franklin F. Buell, this is before the Justice Harold S. Wood. Franklin F. Buell, being duly sworn, deposes and says that he is not a party to the action, is over 18 years of age, and resides at Box 416, White Plains, New York, 10602. That on the following days and times, deponent served the within order to show cause. On August the 2nd, 1994, Tuesday, at 8:40 p.m., deponent personally served upon Roberta Walsh her copy of the order to show cause and said, Roberta Walsh, you are served. Simultaneously, I, pursuant to CPLR Rule 812, I think it is, service upon an infant, served upon Roberta Walsh the order to show cause for her son, James Walsh, and said, James Walsh, you are served. At the same time, I served upon Nella Alpucci a true copy of the order to show cause and said, Nella Alpucci, you are served. Simultaneously, I, pursuant to CPR Rule 812, service upon an infant, served upon Nella Alpucci the order to show cause for her son, Theo Alpucci, and said, Theo Alpucci, you are served. There was a barrage of obscenities and abusive language from the 2 women. As I walked away, they rose from their chairs, where they were sitting outdoors in the parking area to the east of my bedroom window at 21 Greenridge Avenue, White Plains, New York, 10605, and followed me. First they threw the papers served on the ground, then picked them up and threw them into the open south window into my bedroom. This is contempt of Judge Wood and the order to show cause that he signed. At 9:01 p.m., Roberta Walsh slapped with great force and noise my front door. At 9:05 p.m., Daniel Walsh picked up the papers that that were thrown out the window onto the driveway. At 9:11 p.m., Roberta Walsh slapped my front door 3 times and banged 2 times the door knocker. On August the 3rd, 1994, Wednesday. See, this has been reduced. It's really hard to read. And so the letters are so small, that means you have to read it quietly, right? And Ginny is sitting on the windowsill eating, looking to the west. 5:15 a.m., I discovered that the light outside my basement storage bin had been vandalized. The bulb was on the cellar floor, smashed into pieces, and the chain had been pulled off the socket. Prime suspect is Roberta Walsh. She has vandalized our basement bin 5 times and our front door 12 times. At 8:30 a.m. the same day, I served the within order to show cause upon Bruce P. Bendish, Suite 210, 399 Knollwood Road, White Plains, New York, 10603, the address designated by said attorney for the defendants, and upon Kevin Conboy, 2 William Street, White Plains, New York, 10601, the address designated by said attorney for the Larkin defendants, by placing true copies of same enclosed and postpaid properly addressed wrappers in a post office official depository under the exclusive care and custody of the United States Post Office Department within the state of New York. On August 3, 1994, Wednesday at 1:30 p.m., deponent personally served upon infant Theo Alpucci a true copy of the order to show cause. There was a barrage of obscenities, insulting, and abusive language from both Theo Alpucci and his mother Nella Alpucci, who were standing at the entrance of Building B, where they lived. Nella Alpucci gave me a karate chop on my right wrist, which hurt severely. Theo Alpucci shoved me on my right shoulder. I came to my apartment in Building A and called the police. Officer Sight asked if I wanted an ambulance. I said no. She came to my home and I saw the welt on my wrist. She wrote a report. I said when I served Theo Alpucci, you are served. So you have to serve when you're serving an infant, and that's anybody under 18 years of age by the what the court calls an infant. You have to serve both the parent and you have to serve the infant himself. On August 3, 1994, 7:30 p.m., deponent personally served upon infant son James Walsh a true copy of the order to show cause. He was standing behind his mother, Roberta Walsh. She began a volley of obscenities and abusive and insulting language. I walked away toward my apartment front door. She followed me, striking me on the back with the papers. I went into my front door with her after me, screaming all the time and with James following her. James lied. He hit me with a paper. In hysterics, Roberta Walsh called up the stairs to her husband, Daniel, saying, quote, "Daddy, he hit our son with a piper. Call the F***King cops." Daniel did. I came into my home and called the police to come. At 7:35 p.m., Officer Keith Martin arrived. I told him I wanted to see him. He said yes to this, but first he had to go upstairs to 3A, where the Walsh family lives. The last person to be served was Daniel Walsh, so I waited outside his door on the second floor for him to come out. I rapped on the door 3 times, but they did not answer. At 7:48 p.m., another policeman came up the stairs and rapped on Walsh's door. When the door opened, I saw Daniel Walsh standing in his hall. I handed him the order to show cause and said, "Daniel Walsh, you are served." At 8:05 p.m., the 2 police officers exited the building, passing right by my door. I ran outside and told them I also had summoned the police. The sergeant said, "Oh, I didn't know that." That'd be Sergeant Hanley. Sergeant asked me to tell him what had happened, and I did. He's badge number 2. On August the 4th, 1994, when I went to our automobile in its designated parking space just 20 feet from my south bedroom window through which Roberta and Nella had thrown the legal papers Tuesday night, there was a key scratch all the way from the tail light to the headlight on the passenger side, the side along the driveway where people walk and drive. This appeared sometime between 8:30 p.m. Wednesday and 8:30 a.m. Thursday. The estimate of the damage is $600 by Riemann Auto Body. Lieutenant Quinn of the White Plains Police sent Officer Eric Fisher to see it and write a report. Dated White Plains, New York, August 5, 1994, Franklin F. Buell. Subscribed and sworn to before me this 5th day of August, 1949, Ivan Pinello. Now, here are some police reports. See if we can get these in before the New York Times calls to finish that story they're writing about. Same thing the New York Law Journal wrote about. Glendora versus Cablevision. Glendora wins, Cablevision loses. This is Officer Sight's report. Oh, what nice writing. Complainant states, while attempting to serve court papers on his neighbors Nella Alpucci and her son Theo, Nella hit his wrist and Theo pushed his shoulder. Mr. Buell had a red mark on his wrist. However, refused medical aid. He was advised to see his own doctor if his wrist bruised and he had pain. Mr. Buell was serving the papers for his wife, Glendora, who is a party to the case. Officer Sight is blonde, female, pretty, petite, but is determined, thorough, professional. She is one of the best we have summoned. She does her work well. Glendora first noticed this over the phone. She was excellent there, too. Now we have Keith Martin's report, and that's on the 3rd, Wednesday, and that was around 7:30 to 8:05. A call of a dispute at 21 Greenwich Avenue was received. He writes nicely, too. I spoke with Daniel Walsh, who stated that Franklin Buell, and he's got it spelled right, too. Good for you, Keith. Franklyn, of apartment A2, 21 Greenwich Avenue, struck his 12-year-old son in the shoulder. Now, the lie has gone worse. First it was that he hit him with a piece of paper, which is a lie, and this other one is a lie too, attempting to serve him with legal papers. The son has no injury and no complaint, no pain. This incident had occurred at about, it was about 7:30 p.m. on August the 3rd, 1994. No further something at this time. I told you all about Keith Martin and the officer and Sergeant Hammond. I told you about that last week. But now we have Keith Martin's report, another report on the same day. I spoke with Nella Alpucci, who stated that Franklin Buell of apartment A2, 21 Greenwich Avenue, struck her 16-year-old son, Fernando Alpucci, that's Theo Alpucci to us, while attempting to serve him with legal papers. Fernando Alpucci was struck in the chest and shoulder area, was unavailable at the time of this report. This incident occurred at about 1:30 p.m. No further something at this time. Well, that's a lie. Franklin did not strike Theo Alpucci. Now we have a report by Coyle. I don't know what it is up there, what his words. Headquarters advised me of 3 youths in the street playing football. Upon arrival, there was no one in area. Well, Officer Coyle, and it says the name refused. It was Neil Alpucci. Glendora has it on videotape. It is ready to go on TV. The second person was the boy from East India, and the third was a guest of the Alpuccis. It happened the same night. Nella said, "We're leaving now," to taunt Glendora through her southeast bedroom window. Glendora does not understand why Coyle would say nobody was on the scene in the area, because Coyle himself spoke to the 3 as he parked on the wrong side of the street, the east side, from his cruiser window. There is a lot about this report that is not the truth, and Franklin also saw him. He's talked to the boys. He talked to the three males. Boys, one of them looked pretty old. So this is tortious act are up to 841. 17 hours has been spent on the law breaking of the Walsh family and the Alpucci family this week. Glendora asked Caesar if he was going to buy a new refrigerator for the Young's apartment 2B because they're moving back to Virginia. Kathy Young says it is no good. Glendora asked Caesar if he would like to have Glendora's great big Hot Point refrigerator, which is a beauty, and buy a new smaller refrigerator for Glendora. We do not use more than 1/3 of the big Hot Point, and it costs about $54 a month, way too much. John Porzio put this DHCR form under Glendora's door. She asked him what it was for, and he was mute. Glendora will ask the DHCR. Where is that form? It's a form about the rent and the increase in the rent. The rent was $950 when we came here, and now John Porzio's got it up to $1,019. He did that in a year. Here's a police report by Officer DeLeo. Responded to 21 Greenwich Avenue, apartment 4B, and met with the complainant, Nella L. Pucci, whose telephone number is 682-0122. The complainant stated that she left her apartment door unlocked to do laundry, and when she returned she found the door locked and felt it had been deadbolted from the inside. The complainant states she would give the authority to the fire department to enter through the kitchen window. Upon the fire department's arrival, they entered through a screen window and found that the door was not double locked from the inside. Well, it's clear what happened. Nella Pucci went out of the apartment and left her keys in there. And she tied up 1 fire truck, 4 firemen, 3 police cruisers, and 3 policemen. And she was furious when I came down to see what was going on, and she began one of her barrages of insulting and abusive language. So I watched the whole thing, and I told you about that. Lieutenant Quinn, report taken via the telephone. Mrs. Buell said that while entering the hallway on the first floor of her level, maybe, she met Roberta Walsh in the same building, and Mrs. Walsh allegedly said, "You leave those girls alone, they have done nothing wrong." Mrs. Buell felt that was harassment, but that was not something, no further action. Glendora told Lieutenant Quinn a whole lot more than what was reported here. He left out about 5 items. Glendora was on the phone with him for 20 minutes. The time now is 11:50 a.m. and James and Neil are playing catch on the sidewalk in front of Building A. Now, I took Bo for a walk, Bo dog for a walk. And when I came back, Ginny was waiting outside of in the front of the building to come into her home. And I wanted to pick Ginny up because I knew she would be scared about Bo. So when I dropped Bo's leash to pick up Ginny, then Bo started chasing Ginny, and Bo chased Ginny all the way down the driveway, past Nella L. Pucci, Roberta Walsh, and Daniel Walsh, who were sitting like Humpty Dumpty on the wall, and had been there for 3 hours sitting on the wall. And so Bo chased Ginny all the way down to Francine's apartment. That would be by Building D. And Ginny went up a tree, and Francine says, "Bo, you shouldn't chase Ginny, cat." And Francine was very nice. She enabled me to locate Ginny, and I took Ginny in my arms. And then I also retrieved Bo, and I had Ginny in this arm, and I had Bo by the leash. And as I was walking back past the wall, and I had never said anything or even looked at these people, and was headed into my apartment, Nella L. Pucci said, "You, F blank blank K-I-N-G, old so-and-so, and you're the worst F blank blank K-I-N-G, hold still." Here's the form from the DHCR. I don't know what that's all about, because this all happened months ago. Anyway, you are what I told you I've ever seen. And Roberta says she doesn't like kids, but she likes animals. Franklin said that they broke up at 9:15 p.m. and they left a huge pizza box that did not fit in the cellar trash barrel. And that was the 844th offense, law-breaking. 844, since it started a year ago Easter. And in the morning I discovered that the cellar bin light had been vandalized for the 6th time. The light bulb was missing. So prime suspect is Roberta Walsh, Nella Alpucci. This is Tortious Act 845. We will tell the White Plains police they will write reports, they will do nothing. These hoodlums know they can break the law and the White Plains police will do nothing. Their record is on paper, on audio tape, on videotape, and on television, and on 9 different cable companies. Kathy and Dick Young put 20 articles in the cellar, but they're out, but they left a whole bunch of articles in our cellar. Glendora is still trying to air out the mildew smell coming from the bid belonging to 3C. It is not helpful. Andrew, on roller skates, came into Building A, and he walked all the way up 2 flights of stairs on roller skates. Now you can imagine all the noise that made. And he had Chester with him, and they banged on the door, and they screamed, James, Jim, and then they came back down. The Walshes obviously were not home, but they kept at the banging on the door and the hollering and the screaming. And then Andrew comes down the stairs with those roller skates on, making all that noise, and I opened the door to identify them. It was Andrew and it was Chester. And outside they screamed, I saw Glendora! On August the 9th, 1994, Tuesday, Porzio, I told him about the broken bathroom window. See, the windows don't come down very easily, they're stuck in there. And I've told Porzio about this for a year and a half. And then the putty is falling out of the window, so when the temperature dropped from 93 degrees to 63 degrees, I had to put down the bathroom window. And being stuck, you had to use force with it. And the putty having fallen out, the bathroom window pane fell out, 1 pane. It's in 4 panes, and 1 fell out, and it broke. So I told him. And at first he says, oh, well, you'll have to pay for that. And then I explained to him about the putty and how stuck the windows are. And he says, all right, I'll ask Caesar to do it. Headline, small, medium, at large. Oh, that's what it was. A midget fortune teller escaped from jail, and the headline was small, medium, at large. Glendora asked for oral argument September 7th from Judge Wood. Glendora told the clerk about the brutality from personal service, and I hope Judge Wood would change his mind about personal service. Here's a check that I got from 2 landlords ago, $5,350, because he overcharged from the rent. The rent was supposed to be something like $400, and he was charging something like $1,000. So here's the letter that I wrote to Judge Wood asking him for oral argument. And what started this, folks? Okay, here's what started it. The breaking of the law by the Walsh, Alpucci, and Larkin families, the White Plains Noise Ordinance, that's Daniel Walsh right now, on April the 11th, 1993, Easter, yelling, shouting, hooting, whistling, or singing at any time or place so as to annoy or disturb the quiet, comfort, repose, health, or peace of persons in any dwelling or other residence. That is the law that was broken initially. And when Glendora stood up for her rights and started videotaping for evidence, these hoodlums started a long campaign of retaliation, more law-breaking, harassment, vandalism, thievery, abusive and insulting language, horn-blowing, fright, mental disturbance, and littering. And what is the law? The law says that when defendant's conduct is extraordinarily vindictive, it may be regarded as so extreme and outrageous as to give rise to a tort cause of action for emotional distress. Particular acts are actionable when done without legal justification, or as the rule is sometimes stated, when done maliciously. They are calculated to produce, and where they do produce, damage. We have all that here. The law, again. In cases involving intentional or wanton or willful torts, that's what we've had here, 845 of them, recovery is allowed for mental anguish unaccompanied by physical contact or injury, or for a physical injury received solely as a result of the mental anguish. In an action for a tort based on malicious and wrongful acts, and that's what the Walshes and the Alpuccis do every day, where the acts result in substantial damages, the jury is entitled to consider not only the actual money damages, but also such damages as necessarily arise out of the acts, including damages for mental suffering and anxiety, if the effect of such damage is to produce suffering and anxiety. And that's what they do it for. Where there's a guarantee of genuineness in the circumstances surrounding the alleged mental disturbance. And boy, that's what we have here. And here's another law. To succeed in an action for intentional infliction of emotional distress, plaintiff must allege that the defendant's conduct was so outrageous and shocking as to exceed all bounds of decency as measured by what the average member of the community would tolerate. 2, and that's certainly what we've had here, that defendant's conduct caused severe mental distress, and 3, that defendant acted with a desire to cause such distress. August the 8th was a day of peace, 99%. Tuesday, August the 9th was okay. August the 10th was okay. And that's when Bo went home. Bo is such a good dog. And, but last night when Franklin and I came home at 9 p.m., Franklin was parking the car. I got out of the car. I was carrying things into the house. And I heard a voice say, "Yoo-hoo!" Another taunt, and it was Nella Alpucci's voice, and Nella Alpucci and Roberta Walk were sitting down in the parking area, one parking space down, in chairs this time instead of on the wall. So that's, and I stopped and I looked straight at them and I had the audio recorder going. But they didn't say anything more, and that's an improvement over last year. Last year they would have kept it up for minutes and minutes and minutes. But this time they knew enough to stop. Just a reminder that this was in the New York Law Journal yesterday morning. It's Glendora versus Cablevision, Charles Dolan, and all the names that you see on the screen. They broke a state law, they were caught lying, and it's really over for them. Now the New York Times is doing an article on it, and they called me 40 minutes yesterday, and 20 minutes today. They were on the phone and they're sending a photographer. And all of that, in addition to that long article you saw, they printed the whole decision by Judge Silverman. I guess it's sort of a landmark case. I can't figure out why. Or maybe it's the first time that the state law has been tested, that a cable operator cannot exercise editorial control of a public access program. And maybe it's the fact that a pro se beat out a Park Avenue lawyer. That would be Robert Kalaji. And maybe it's that people are so upset with cable companies. And they feel that they've been pushed around, and this was sort of like a class action.